Okay, y'all, how are y'all doing? I am Coach JS or JS Method or Jamie as y'all may know me as, and today I want to talk about default settings that you have to change right away. And if you haven't, you should change them. Um, so the beginning ones will be like the most beginner friendly and the most obvious, and then I have five, and as we get towards the bottom of the list, those will be a little bit more advanced. But you should change these settings at some point. So the first thing, and you'll see this if you watch League players, is you want to go and, hit escape. Hopping in practice tool is a good place to do this, right? I'm chilling here in practice tool and you can mess around with settings and get used to them. So hop into practice tool, hit escape, go into interface and bring your HUD scale down. That's this thing right here, and bring that down to as low as you can manage, right? Most players play on it on 0. And bring your mini map up to as high as you can manage. I tell people usually anywhere between 50 and 80 is the sweet spot. Anything above 80, it starts to get a little bit too big. Anything below 50, and it's like really hard to read. These settings are important because the HUD does not, you don't need to be constantly seeing this, right? If there's something you want to check, you can go check it. And even if it's as small as possible, you can still come down here and check it. Right? If you're like, oh, I want to see, I want to read my ability, you can still come read it. Or I want to see how much attack damage I have, you can still see your attack damage. And this is on the vertical axis of your monitor where we don't see that much. So this is very valuable real estate. If it's big, you're going to lose a lot of valuable information, right? The minimap, we want to make it big for the exact opposite reason, where we need to constantly see the minimap. The minimap is one of the most valuable tools you have as a League of Legends player. And if you want to get good at kind of understanding the game and kind of reading game state, you'll have to watch your minimap all the time. So making it big is important. Actually making my minimap bigger is one of the things that actually like helped me start my climb, because I was like, well, if I'm just cognizant of what's happening and where the junglers are at, I play way better. So I just made my minimap bigger and it helped a lot, right? Make your minimap bigger. Okay. The second thing, every player should do this, especially when you're first starting, is show spell costs. Now what that does, you can see this number here, it shows how much the spell costs. We're playing Ezreal, this champion costs mana, so you can see 31 mana, 50 mana for the W, 90 mana for the E. By default, it doesn't show this. So to know how much mana it costs, you'd have to hover over it, right? If you're playing a different champion, it might be health, it might be nothing, it might be energy, whatever, but you'd have to hover over it and read it. Doesn't make sense why it's not just on by default, but to turn it on, you hit escape, you go into interface, you scroll down to ability and attack display, and show spell cost. You can see if we turn it off, we no longer see it. Now this is really helpful because if you're new to the game or new to the champion, you just don't know how much mana things cost, so you don't know if you're going to run out of mana. If you're playing like an assassin, maybe you need to know if you have enough mana to do your full combo, so you can actually kill the guy without running out first. Or if you're playing a mage, mana management's really important. So turn that on. It's really easy, and now you just glance, you can see how much it costs, right? Like, do I have mana for a Q and an R? It's 130 mana. Yes, we do, right? So make sure you turn on spell costs. All right. The third thing every player should do, make sure you have a binding. So by default, you should have your abilities on quick cast. Now what quick cast does is if I have my cursor and I just tap my button, boom, it's going to shoot it out, right? That's what we want. If I tap my button, it's just going to go right towards my cursor. No aiming, no indicator pops up. That's great. It's very good for speed. It's very good once you kind of learn the champions. But sometimes we want to spend the time and we don't need the speed and we're not trying to, be too quick and it doesn't really matter that much. So we want to see the indicator. We want to see how far we can cast the Q from, right? Or we want to see how far our E range is. So you should also go in and set a binding for the normal cast. So by default, it should be quick cast, but you can kind of come down here into these hotkeys and go to the abilities and summoner spells, and you see normal cast right here at the top. I use Shift Q, Shift W, Shift E, so if I just hit Shift, I can kind of see what my ability range is. But you can set it to really whatever you want, right? The important thing is you have a normal cast bound, and it lets you see the range, it lets you see whatever. I initially learned this a couple years ago from a challenger Chinese Tryndamere player, and what he would do is he would normal cast his E to make sure the damage was going to go off. Dopa, right? The rank 1 Korean, like best solo queue player, TF player, he normal casts his Twisted Fate Q when he's trying to last hit the whole wave, right? make sure he hits everything. So there are times when normal cast is very, very good. And if you don't have it bound, you're kind of just missing out on options, right? That's number 3. Make sure you have normal cast bound. All right. The 4th thing, now this is a little bit more advanced, but you should still do it if you're a beginner, especially as you kind of start to get better. But it's attack move on cursor. Make sure this is checked. Now, what this means, I'll just show you. So in game, the setting is right here. By default, it's not checked. Now, attack move is default set to A, and then you left click. And you can see right here, if we left click out here, it's going to attack the closest thing to us. All right, that's what it does by default. If you check this, which is what I'm telling you to do, go check this, it's going to attack the closest thing to my cursor. So if I click out here like I was, it's going to attack this guy, right? If I click over here, it'll attack this guy. If I click in the middle, it'll attack this guy. Now, this is way more useful because this just improves the accuracy of your things, right? Having this unchecked is stupid. I don't know why Riot ever, like, I don't even know why it's a setting, right? It's just, it doesn't make sense. And this is really helpful because, you know, maybe if you want to attack this guy, but you don't want to walk up into him, you can just do this. And there's no shot you kind of misclick and accidentally walk into him. Makes last hitting a lot easier. It improves the accuracy of your clicks pretty much for free. So you should be using attack move, especially if you're playing a ranged champion or an ADC or an attack-based champion. And it should be checked attack move on cursor, because otherwise, like, it's not actually that useful. Okay, so number 4 is attack move on cursor. The last thing, number 5, is change your F keys. This is another thing. I'm like, Riot, why did you do this? It makes no sense. All right, this is another hotkey thing. You go to hotkeys, you go to camera control, and you can see select ally 1 through 4 by default is set to F2, F3, F4, F5, which is stupid. Select self is on F1 by default. Select self does the same thing as hitting spacebar, right? So this doesn't even need to be bound. Like, people can unbind that and it'd be completely fine. And then you want to put select ally 1 through 4 and F1 through 4 because F1 through 4 are much easier to reach. And these buttons are very important for kind of higher level camera control, right? What that does is it kind of puts you to where your ally's at, right? I'm the only person on the team right now, but if this was filled up with players, ally 1 would be the person on the top, ally 2, ally 3, ally 4, and then me, or wherever I'm at, right? So F1 would go up the top lane, F2 to the jungle, F3 mid lane, whatever. So change that to more reachable keys. I use F1, F2, F3, F4, which makes sense. But some people, you know, either your keyboard doesn't have those keys, right? If you have like a 60% keyboard, or maybe it's uncomfortable for you because your hands aren't big enough. You know, there's quite a few people who will use Z, X, C, V. There are other options, right? Like you can use Shift QW, Shift 1, 2, 3. There's a bunch of other options. Just change it from what it is by default, because by default it's really annoying and hard to hit. Okay, so those are my top 5 default settings you have to change once you start playing League. So make sure you guys set those up, and it should be a lot easier for you to do things that you see the higher level players doing. It'll be a lot easier for you to kind of dive into higher level mechanics as well. Hopefully this video helped you guys. If you liked it, make sure you drop a like, leave a comment for what you guys want to see next time. I really appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.